الرحمن, الرحيم, الرؤوف, mercy. In the name of God, the most merciful, الرحمن, the most compassionate, الرحيم. Imagine that you had just a few moments to tell someone about yourself. What characteristics would you choose? What defines you? In all your human complexity, you would choose to highlight those things that are important for your relationship with that person. If you are being interviewed for a job, you may focus on the fact that you are hardworking and resourceful, or that you have expertise in the position you are applying for. When you are talking to someone for marriage, you may highlight your kindness and patience. Wherever relevant, you would focus on those qualities that are essential to your relationship. In defining his relationship with us, God consistently emphasizes two essential attributes, and out of all of the attributes he could have chosen to remind us of who he is, God begins with this: mercy, Rahman. These are the names that God has chosen to start the recitation of his words, the Quran. At the beginning of every chapter, this is his introduction to us. For those who do not know their Lord except that he is their Lord, it is this attribute that they are supposed to first encounter. This is not insignificant. First impressions are important, and they set the tone for what is to come. God could have impressed upon his majesty, his strength, and his power. They are all part of his attributes. But time and again, just in case we despair, or our hearts harden, or our minds become confused, he brings us back. Remember his love and mercy. Rahman and Raheem both come from the same Arabic root, Ra-ha-mim, which means a combination of tenderness, affection, sympathy, and compassion. In showing us what this looks like in action, the Prophet pointed to a scene that was occurring right before the companions' eyes. A woman was frantically looking for her child in the aftermath of a battle. Imagine the feeling of a mother who, for one moment, thinks she had lost her child and in a battlefield. Imagine her feeling when she finally found him, scooped him up as she wept, and then nursed him. After witnessing this scene, the Prophet ﷺ asked his companions, "Do you think that this woman would throw her child in the fire?" And they said, "No, by God, she would not. She is able not to." He then said, "Allah, the Exalted, is more merciful with his slave than this woman with her child." From Bukhari. This type of mercy from a mother towards her child is one that most people can understand. Moreover, the Prophet was not general in his example. He could have simply said that God's mercy is more than the mercy of a mother towards her child. But that would be abstract, and some people may not even enjoy that type of relationship with their mothers. They may relate the flaws in that relationship to Allah. The Prophet rather demonstrated this mercy through a mother faced with the situation of losing her child and finding him again. The intensity of that mercy, the force of that love, the gentleness in that affection. Allah is more merciful and loving to his creatures, is more merciful and loving to his creation than all that. And these are the feelings meant to be invoked when we call on him by these names. Al-Rahman, Al-Rahim, an essential attribute, a manifestation. God is Al-Rahman and Al-Rahim, and as mentioned above, both of these attributes come from the same root. Their different forms show us the type of mercy and how God manifests His mercy. When Allah tells us He is Al-Rahman, He is pointing to an essential attribute. The form of the word, the an suffix, indicates an all-encompassing nature, immediacy and expansiveness. For example, one who is filled with anger is Ghadban. Hayran is one who is filled with confusion. If someone is described as Ghadban, you would stay out of his way because of the intensity of his anger. As well, the fact that it can be directed at anyone. The one who is Ghadib, however, is less intense. And this word can be used to say that the person is angry for a specific reason or with a person. So, Allah, who chooses His own names and is not named by others, tells us that His state is one of an all-encompassing, immediate, overflowing mercy. This mercy is not limited and touches everything and everyone at this moment. Humans and non-humans, men and women, old and young, those who believe and those who do not. Al-Ghazali states that His mercy is all-inclusive, in that it includes the worthy and the unworthy, this life and that which is to come, and encompasses the essentials, needs and advantages which go beyond them. The beauty of this name is that, like the name Allah, it is reserved for God alone. His other names and attributes, such as being wise or great, may be used to describe humans, although, as we know, His attributes are nothing like ours, even if they share the same name. Regarding Al-Rahman, God says, say, call upon Allah or call upon the most merciful, Al-Rahman, whichever name you call, to Him belong the best names. To show how central mercy is, His name Ar-Rahman is interchangeable here with Allah. Indeed, we are told that when God decreed creation, He also decreed, "My mercy prevails over my wrath." However, language by its very nature is limited. The form of the word Rahman, like Ghadban and Hayran, may linguistically indicate that this state is temporary, and thus the two names tend to come together, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. The latter indicates permanency and the possibility of deferring its expression. In combining these two attributes, God has covered all the bases. His mercy is all-encompassing and immediate, as well as permanent and far-reaching into the future. Ar-Rahim also refers to the specific manifestation of His mercy. Allah says in the Quran, "And ever is He to the believers merciful." Rahman. While God's general mercy extends to everyone, there is a specific mercy for those who believe in Him. It is only those who believe in Him who experience the mercy of the month of Ramadan or the 5 daily prayers. It is those with an ounce of faith to whom God will extend His mercy on the Day of Judgment. Moreover, Allah combines His name Ar-Rahim with His name Al-Ghafur, the most forgiving. And when those come to you who believe in our verses, say, "Peace be upon you, your Lord has decreed upon Himself mercy, that any of you who does wrong out of ignorance and then repents after that and corrects himself, indeed He is forgiving and merciful." Sheikh Mahir Muqaddim states that the combination of these two names is an indication of the perfection of God's mercy. The effect of His all-encompassing mercy is forgiveness, over and over again. Moreover, the attribute of forgiveness is mentioned before mercy in this combination because forgiveness is a type of purification from our mistakes, while mercy includes a type of care. So, we are purified of sin through His forgiveness and taken care of by Him through His mercy. Allah also combines this name with His name Al-Ra'uf. He says, and indeed, Allah is to you kind, Raouf, and merciful. The next section will explain the meaning of this name. Al-Ra'uf. Al-Ra'uf is the one who has pity on others, and pity is the intensification of mercy. Therefore, it has the same meaning as Raheem. In an intensified form, God says in the Quran, and never would Allah have caused you to lose your faith. Indeed, Allah is to the people kind, Raouf, and merciful. So, if Ar-Raouf is simply a more intensified form of mercy, what is the difference between Rahman and Ra'fa, kindness, from the same root as Ar-Raouf? There are several subtle differences. The first is in relation to when this mercy manifests. For example, if a hardship befalls you, the one who is merciful, الرحيم, has mercy on you during and after that calamity. He extends His kindness to you during the hardship, and indeed, the hardship itself may be from His mercy. But Ra'fa is mercy before the calamity hits, and involves Him taking care of you and warning you so that the calamity can be averted altogether. Sheikh Ratib al-Nabilsi gives an example of parents who are protective of their children. Parents will dress their child in warm clothes during winter so that they do not suffer from the cold. That is Ra'fa. When a child becomes sick, the parent whose heart aches and who does everything to get medicine to ease the child's pain is merciful. Raheem. Imam al-Qushayri states that Ra'fa is the highest form of mercy, where God protects His servants by warning them of the deeds that necessitate punishment. Moreover, the word Ra'fa can only refer to acts that are manifestly compassionate and kind. One can be merciful, have Rahman, even though his or her actions appear to be harsh. For example, a parent may have to force a child to take medicine that is essential to their health. To the child, that may not seem merciful, even though it is. Ra'fa, on the other hand, are only those actions that are clearly and outwardly kind and compassionate. God does not want us to have an ounce of doubt about His mercy towards us. His mercy is not only all-encompassing, with a special kind reserved for the believers on the Day of Judgment, but He is telling us that His warnings to us are out of an intense mercy. He does not want us to go through the hurt and pain we would have gone through had He not warned us. His love and mercy are in both the bitter medicine and the manifest gifts He gives. What does this mean for us? In order to understand this amazing mercy in the grand scheme of things, the Prophet ﷺ informs us that Allah has divided mercy into 100 parts, and He retained with Him 99 parts, and sent down to earth 1 part. Though this one part creates. Through this one part, creatures deal with one another with compassion, so much so that an animal lifts its hoof over its young, lest it should hurt it. When your mother shows affection towards you, or when your spouse covers you with a blanket lest you feel cold, remember that this is only a fraction of the one part of mercy that Allah sent down to earth. So imagine the mercy He has saved for His people on the Day of Judgment. This intense focus on mercy should define our relationship with Allah. When we begin reciting the Quran, we start by remembering that the one who sent the Quran has an essential attribute of mercy. In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Bismillahir Rahman الرحيم. Thus, every single letter, every word, every meaning of the Quran has mercy in it. The most merciful also sent his prophet as a mercy to the worlds. Through the Prophet ﷺ, we learn what mercy looks like in its human manifestation. When we look around us, we need to see mercy in the way that everything is created, even in hardship, in all cases of difficulty. The Prophet ﷺ said, "No fatigue, nor disease, nor sorrow, nor sadness, nor hurt, nor distress befalls a Muslim, even if it were the prick he receives from a thorn, but that Allah expiates some of his sins for that. None of our pain goes unnoticed." The culmination of Allah's mercy is in the paradise that He created, which the Prophet described as a place no eye has seen and no ear has heard, and neither has the thought occurred in any person's heart. It is this place that we strive to enter, where we will understand that this is what our struggle was for. It is reported that when one of the most miserable people in the world, meaning the person who has only seen struggle and pain in life, is dipped once into paradise, God will ask him, "Did you ever face any distress or a thing you hate?" And that person will respond, "No, by your glory, never did I face anything unpleasant." Whatever hardship was suffered will feel as though it was nothing. And this is something for us to remember when we go through difficult times. In His mercy, God has prepared for us the ultimate mercy, which will eliminate any form of pain that we ever felt. This is the reward of those who are admitted to paradise. Therefore, when we see everything, good and bad, as coming from an all-merciful source, we can see beyond what is immediately in front of us. When there is hardship, we can search for the mercy in it. What are the lessons we can learn? When there is good, we can praise Him and thank Him. Moreover, God's Ra'fa is in His instructing us on the best way to be in this world. When we are forced with things we cannot explain, or suffering that seems too great, it is our responsibility to act, and Allah tells us how to act. How to act as His vice-regents on this earth. Every suffering will have its end, as Allah will bring about after hardship, ease. We will only be asked about what we did in the face of it. While there is much more to say, part of His mercy can be seen in His other attributes. We see His mercy in the fact that He is the Lord of the worlds and is still merciful towards us, in His justice, in His patience, in His wisdom, and more. Living with this name, have mercy on others. Just as we love that Allah bestows His mercy and kindness upon us, so should we treat others the way that we love to be treated. Muslims, by their very nature, should exhibit mercy because we are servants of the Most Merciful. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "Those who show mercy to their fellow beings will be shown mercy by the merciful Lord." So, show mercy to those on the earth, and He who is in the heavens will show mercy to you. From Tirmidhi. Learn the things that bring about Allah's mercy. While Allah bestows His mercy upon everyone, we mentioned that He has reserved a special type of mercy for His beloved servants. The Prophet teaches us what brings about God's special mercy. For example, he tells us, the Prophet tells us, may Allah have mercy on a man who is kind when he buys, when he sells, and when he makes a demand. From Bukhari. Business can sometimes be cutthroat, where being harsh can be seen as getting things done, and all are looking out for themselves. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that kindness should be part of conducting business and is cause for receiving God's mercy. Furthermore, he told us, may Allah have mercy on the man who gets up at night to pray and wakes up his wife to pray, and if she refuses, he sprinkles water in her face. And may Allah have mercy on the woman who gets up at night to pray and wakes her husband up to pray, and if he refuses, she sprinkles water in his face. From Abu Dawood. God has mercy on the couple who encourage each other to do good and wake each other up gently to pray the voluntary night prayer. Increase mercy in your heart. Living in our own bubble and being consumed with our own issues can numb us to the suffering around us. When we view our problems as being the greatest, this is not to minimize whatever suffering we are going through. But at times we may get caught in our lives and forget other people. Our hearts may harden, and we may not be able to empathize with the issues and struggles of others. Helping and being with others who are struggling should increase the mercy in our hearts. We can do this through volunteering, for example, for different causes, such as at a soup kitchen or an organization that provides housing for the homeless, or time with the elderly. Give some of your time, energy, and money to stand with people. Follow the one who was sent as a mercy to the world. One of the manifestations of God's mercy towards humanity is in His Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Allah says in the Quran, and we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to the worlds. If the Prophet himself is described as being a mercy to everyone, then the best way for us to become a manifestation of God's mercy is to follow His example. God also tells us, so by mercy from Allah, O Muhammad, you were lenient with them. And if you had been rude in speech and harsh in heart, they would have disbanded from about you. Part of God's mercy is that He made the Prophet lenient and kind. The opposite of that is being rude and harsh, as the verse describes. It is both contradictory and sad that those described as being religious can be the harshest. And this is the furthest one can be from the example of the Prophet. Some use the argument that they are simply enjoining the good and forbidding evil. But even that principle has its rule. In essence, we should want what is best for others in this life and the next, and our actions should follow that. For example, during the battle of Uhud, which was the most difficult battle for the Muslims, the companions asked the bleeding Prophet to supplicate against their enemy. But he refused and said, O Allah, guide my people, for they do not know. From Bayhaqi. These are lessons from which we need to learn. Reflect upon the manifestations of Allah's mercy in your life, in times when He has given and in times when He has withheld. We are all recipients of God's mercy. We are all recipients of God's many mercies. Reflecting upon the apparent mercies can help us to see how Allah manifests His name in our lives and should increase our love and gratitude. We should also remember that part of the definition of mercy that we cited is that while the action itself may not seem merciful in the immediate, it actually is in the long term. In our own personal lives, there are many times when something that is perceived as bad turns out to be something good and a mercy for us. Not marrying the one you thought was the love of your life might have been a mercy that saved you from something that would have been far worse. The accident that affected your ability to move may have been a mercy that protected you from engaging in certain types of sin. Losing a loved one and exhibiting patience with that could result in the ultimate mercy of being reunited with him or her in paradise. So, take the time to reflect on Allah's mercy in your life, the times He protected you, the times He gave to you, and even the times